Welcome one and all to a new series which I call Classics Retold. In this first episode, I present my version of the H.G. Wells classic, The Time Machine. Let's go. A young scientist who worked for a prestigious scientific research company was hard at work building a very special machine that nobody but himself and his team knew about. He was building a machine that would be able to carry a passenger on a journey through time. He and his team had been working on it for several months, using a company-allocated budget of £50 million for this project. Their research had turned up lots of theories and ways time travel could be achieved by the use of this machine. One day, as they were adding the final component to the full-scale machine and were ready to test it out, when a call came through from the boss's office, asking him in for a meeting. So he grabbed a big black box and headed down to the boss's office. He arrived at the office with the boss, who asked him what he'd been working on all these months. He showed him the contents of his big black box, revealing what appeared to be just a small model machine, and wasn't happy that he'd wasted £50 million of the company's money on just a small model. He explained that this model was just a smaller version of a machine he'd just finished building with the help of his team in his laboratory. "What is it?" the boss asked him. "This is a time machine," replied the scientist, who then explained that according to their calculations, this machine would be able to travel to the past or future. This small model was to aid them in conducting an experiment to test his hypothesis. He used a stylus pen to power the model. He then guided the boss through the experiment safely, and the model machine whirred into life, and after a few minutes, vanished into thin air. The experiment had succeeded. The boss congratulated him, dismissing him from the meeting. The scientist returned to his laboratory and climbed into the pilot's seat of the full-sized time machine. He powered it up, made sure everything was in order, and pushed the backward control button without setting a time and location. As he sat there, he saw the clocks turning backwards, and he was soon traveling through the cosmos as the time machine traveled. Before long, he stopped in a field of green. The date and location display told him he was in Salem, Massachusetts in the year 1692. He'd arrived in the time of the Salem witch trials and was at risk of getting caught and arrested for witchcraft, so he quickly hit the forward control button and was soon traveling through the cosmos once more. Before long, he stopped the machine in a busy city that looked very Victorian. The date and location display now told him he was in London, 1838. As he stepped off the machine, he saw a young orphan being chased by a mob of angry people yelling, "Stop, thief!" He managed to stop the boy and found out he was Oliver Twist. Realizing he couldn't change history, he returned to the time machine and hit the forward control button and was traveling through the cosmos for the third time. Had he really just gone back in time and met the real Oliver Twist? Was it this boy's life that inspired Charles Dickens? His head was spinning with curiosity. The machine eventually came to a halt of its own accord as it stopped in a garage behind a huge iron door. The location display didn't read anything, but it was the year he'd landed in that baffled him. He was in the year 802,701 AD, and he needed to know about the place and its natives. As he entered daylight again, he saw fields of green and a bright blue sky. A very curious-looking young woman approached him. She had light skin and blonde hair, and she was soon joined by a whole group of young men and women with light skin and blonde hair. He learned these people were called the Eloi, and the young woman talking to him was called Weena. As time passed, he learned there was a race of people who were used to the dark, as they'd adapted to it over the centuries, and these people were called the Morlocks, who were actually mutants who took the eldest Eloi down below to eat them. Realizing that he was next to be taken, as he was the eldest person there now, he devised a plan to defeat the Morlocks, but it required them to wait until dark. As darkness fell, a group of Morlocks came up to take some Eloi down below. He sprung into action, shoving a lighted torch in their faces, causing them so much pain that they retreated back to their dark underground dwelling. He had saved the Eloi after just appearing there from another world from their perspective, so he told them he was from their world, just hundreds of thousands of years in the past. He eventually returned to his time machine and pressed the backward control button and started traveling back in time. After a while, he stopped back in his laboratory, in the present. What an amazing adventure that was.